Your your devices will be muted, but I will be monitoring the chat site to facilitate the conversation. So let me tell you a little bit about our speaker. Jack Whittington retired from the insurance industry in 2023. He now resides in the Roanoke area of Southwest Virginia. Jack enjoys reading, traveling, hiking, and he's been an AARP volunteer since January of this year. So he's jumped in big time, and for that we are grateful. So with that, I turn this over to Jack Whittington.
Thanks, Evan, for that kind introduction, and welcome everyone to the webinar today. I'm impressed we've got folks from all across the country, so good afternoon and good morning. Looking forward to spending time with you guys today to help you gain a better understanding of your Social Security options. My name, as Evan mentioned, is Jack Whittington. I'm a community ambassador volunteer with AARP. And this is really my first live webinar, so I hope you guys will be patient with me today and excuse any maybe hiccups we have, but we hope to have a good experience today and look forward to all your questions later in the webinar. All right, so let's jump right in. So the topics we're going to cover today, we're going to go over the fundamentals of what is Social Security. So if many of you are already familiar with Social Security, this may be a review for you, but we want to make sure everyone is fully up to speed. We're going to talk about your payment options in terms of claiming your Social Security, also your options for working while taking Social Security payments, and then also give you some information about benefits for your family that you may not know about that are part of your Social Security record. And then finally, we're going to get into some of the mechanics about how do you apply for Social Security and some of the resources available, and also talk a little bit about the future of Social Security in terms of the trust fund and things like that. We will not be able to share this presentation, but I will be pointing you to some handouts at the end of the presentation that hopefully will give you most of the information that you need from today's webinar. First of all, Social Security. What is Social Security? So Social Security is it's an insurance program. It is based upon a central trust fund that is set up by the government. It was created in 1935 after the 1929 stock market crash, Great Depression. Most of you probably have contributed to the trust fund. The taxes are called FICA, F-I-C-A. It stands for the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. There's actually two parts to the contribution. One is yours and the other is your employer. You pay 6.2% and your employer then contributes another 6.2% for a total of 12.4% that goes into the trust fund. Your eligibility for collecting Social Security is based upon something called credits. And you'll see that if you ever log into your Social Security account or get a statement. And sometimes that can seem a little intimidating, but credits are actually pretty simple. Basically, you earn credits for every year that you work. So if you work 10 years, at least 10 years contributing Social Security taxes, then you'll get a full 40 credits. So you get 4 credits for each year that you work. And then the program can also provide payments not only to people who retired, but there are also benefits or options available for folks who are disabled, and there are also survivor benefits available as part of the program. Social Security was originally intended to be really a safety net for recipients. It wasn't originally designed to be a primary source of income. However, in today's world, is become a fairly significant part of many people's income and very important to their ability to comfortably retire. So it has changed from the original design. So moving on to the next topic. We want to talk a little bit about, what is the average Social Security payment? So Brian, if you could put up the poll for slide 4, I'd like to engage everyone on the webinar and get you to give your answer as to which one you think is the answer for the average Social Security payment. Give you just a few, maybe a minute or so, and then we'll share the results. Right. Looks like we got a very majority of folks got about 76% participation, which is great. Most people answered option B, $1,304. I'll just show you the results real quick. Hopefully you guys can see those results. So most of you chose option B. Some of you chose A and some chose C. So for those of you who chose option C, $2,007, you're actually correct. Now, keep in mind, this is an average for all Social Security payments. So that includes, individual, spousal payments, survivor payments, disability payments. But that is the average payment. It's over $2,000. A lot of people are probably surprised by that. So when can you claim retirement? So some of you may have heard about early retirement claim for Social Security. You may also heard about waiting to get more money. Basically, Social Security puts it into 3 buckets. One is early claims, and that starts at age 62, and your payments are reduced from what your full retirement benefit or payment would be if you had waited. And it's reduced according to what age you take it. So if you take it at age 62, it'll be one amount. If you take it at age 63, it'll be slightly more. If you wait until your full retirement age, which for most people is age 66 or 67, you'll get 100% of what Social Security calls your full retirement benefit or payment. If you can delay claiming your payment for Social Security, you can wait up to age 70. You can claim it also between your full retirement age and age 70. But if you can wait until age 70, you'll get the maximum increased payment that Social Security calls it, which can be significant. So, for example, if you were to claim Social Security at age 62, it reduces your payment by up to 30%. And that reduction is permanent. So that means you can't change your mind after you've made that decision. And not only does it affect how much you get once you've claimed that benefit, but the bigger impact is if you have a spouse, it affects potentially what they might get down the road as a survivor or in other cases. On the other hand, if you delayed claiming Social Security until, say, age 70, you could actually increase your amount for your claim quite a bit, as much as 8% a year beyond your full retirement age. So, each person's situation is different. So, obviously many people may not be comfortable waiting until age 70, but I think it's important to consider your options and know what's best for you in terms of your situation. So full retirement age, as I mentioned earlier, the full retirement age is for most people age 66 or age 67. It's a little bit more complicated if your birth year is 1955 through 1959. As you can see on the slide here, you actually have to do a little bit of math to find the actual month of the year that you get your full retirement, reach your full retirement age. For example, if you were born in 1955, you have to actually, it would be your birth month and then an additional 2 months. So if you were born, in July, let's say, and that's when you turn 66, then your actual full retirement month of that year when you turn 66 would be September, 2 months later. So keep that in mind, depending on where you are in terms of your age and what your full retirement age would be. I do see, by the way, just real quick, a couple folks raising their hands. We're not taking live questions during the presentation. I would suggest you use the chat. If you're having any issues with the presentation, please let Evan know, and he can interrupt me if he has to. Otherwise, if you have questions, he will certainly capture those, and we'll cover those at the end of the presentation. Okay, so Brian, can you, so let me talk about this slide, and then we're gonna do another poll. Here's just an illustration. These are not real numbers. These are not your numbers. They're not my numbers. They're just sample numbers. But I'm going to ask a poll question, another poll question to try to get everyone engaged here. And I want to ask everyone, okay, based upon what you saw on the previous slide, if you were born in 1954, how much would you receive if you waited until full retirement using this example? Thank you, Brian. So we'll give you another minute or so to answer that question. All right, well, I think the majority of folks responded. I'm going to share the results from everyone's answer. Looks like it's pretty evenly distributed, which is interesting. Let me just give you the answer, and then we might want to do a little bit more, focus a little bit more on this topic. So remember that what I said earlier, that the full retirement age is where you receive what Social Security calls your full retirement payment, right? So if you were born, and I'm going to go back a slide here real quick. Remember, if you were born in 1954, your full retirement age is age 66. So if we look at this chart again, these at the bottom there, it's age 62 through 70. If you took your retirement at age 62, that would be early retirement claim that you would be putting in place, and you would be taking a lower payment because you're taking an early retirement claim. To get full retirement, you would actually wait until age 66 if you were born in 1954. And at that point, you would get $1,900 as your full retirement payment. If you could wait beyond that, so I know some of you answered age 70, the only way that would not be your full, that actually would be your additional retirement. It's kind of like a bonus if you can wait a couple of years. When Social Security talks about your full retirement payment, they really mean, in this case, age 66. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the information about your account and what you might be able to receive. And again, just a reminder that, if you do decide to go with early retirement, so in this example, your age 62 through age 65 are all considered early retirement. You can see that your benefit or your payment is going to be lower, and it does get incrementally higher each year, but it can be reduced as much as 25%. And if you delay that payment up to age 70, you can get as much as a 32% bonus, so to speak, or bump in your payment for your pay or your claim. And that's again permanent. So that's another thing to make sure you keep in mind, because that could impact other things later down the road, especially if you have a wife or a husband who maybe has a Social Security record where they don't get paid as much as you do because maybe they didn't work as long, or maybe they got paid less in terms of wages, different factors. So just keep all these things in mind when you're thinking about making your decision, because it's a very important decision to make. Okay, so you might be wondering, well, how can I estimate what my Social Security payment will be? There are multiple options that the Social Security Administration provides. The recommended option is to create a My Social Security account on SSA.gov. That way you can actually view your statements online. You can download your statements, and you can also, once you've created that account, you can use that online account to then claim your payment once you're ready to do so. The other benefit that I personally experienced, and another reason I highly recommend that you consider creating the account, is these days we're all concerned about identity theft and having our information stolen. Well, if you create that account and set up good security on it, it's another way to reduce chances of somebody else opening that account on your behalf and stealing that money from you, and then that could be a painful process to try to recover from. There are other options if you're not comfortable creating an account online, or if you can't for some reason. There's a form you can fill out, the SSA 7004. That form is available on the SSA.gov site, SSA.gov site. You don't have to create an account to get that form. You can also call the Social Security office. The enter number is listed here on the slide. And finally, if you decide not to do anything, if you're age 60 or over and you haven't started claiming your payments and you haven't created a My Social Security account, they will automatically start mailing you a statement. And I believe it'll come something like 3 months before your birthday each year at that point. I'm just checking my notes here. Yeah, 3 months before your birthday. Now, keep in mind, if you create the My Social Security account, I don't believe they'll mail that to you, but then you don't really need them to, because you can view it online or download it and print it yourself if you need to. Another thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about your decision of when to claim Social Security is there is a cost of living adjustment each year. So, for example, in 2026, the COLA, as they call it, was 2.8%. That amounted to about an increase of about $50 on average for individuals receiving Social Security. Also the wage cap, something to point out for anyone who's still working. The wage cap on the FICA taxes I referred to earlier is currently $184,500. One thing to keep in mind there is if you work multiple jobs, the Social Security folks they're not going to know that you're working multiple jobs, and so you could potentially find yourself withholding more for FICA taxes if you go above that 184,500 cap. So just keep that in mind. You might be qualified to get some money back if that's the case, if you're one of those folks. So then let's talk a little bit about collecting Social Security and also, working at the same time. So you can work and claim Social Security. One thing I want to talk about real quick here to get one thing out of the way, though, is if you have reached full retirement age and you didn't claim Social Security until you reached your full retirement age and your full retirement month that you qualified, there is no income limit for you working. So once you've reached that full retirement age you can claim Social Security and you can work, and there's no income limit. So if you're in that situation, you don't have to worry about it. There is, however, an income limit if you claim Social Security early and you plan to work. And the way it works is in the years prior to the years that you turn whatever your full retirement age is, so let's say it's 67, in those years that you claim Social Security before the year you turn age 67, what's going to happen is Social Security is going to deduct $1 for every $2 you earn above the income limit. In 2026, that limit is $24,480. So just keep that in mind if you're either currently claiming Social Security early or if you are thinking about it. Now, in the year that you reach full retirement age, so let's say this year you're turning age 67, they will deduct less and the income limit is higher. So let's say you turn age 67 this year in, again, July. Let's say you turned age 67 this month. So for the months of January through June, they will retain $1 for every $3 you earn above the limit. Good news is the limit in the year you reach full retirement age is $65,160. So it's much higher than the years before your full retirement age year. Now, once you reach full retirement age that year, then they no longer deduct any money from your payments. So then you get your full payment. The other thing to keep in mind is that these limits that I mentioned, the income limits, typically increase each year. So don't take what I mentioned as the final word on what those limits are. You'll want to check your own situation and make sure that you know what your personal situation is. But just be aware that those are things you need to look for and check on. The other thing is if you have been in that situation or will be in that situation where Social Security has retained some of those payments while you're working, there is a chance that you may get some of that money back in the form of higher monthly payments once you reach full retirement age. I can't get into the details of that because every person's situation is different, but I want you to be aware of it and make sure that you should check into that just in case that might affect you. Okay, now we're going to jump into the next kind of big topic. And this is one that I think a lot of people are not aware of. And it's a complicated topic as well. And so I'm going to try to go through it carefully because it's complicated for me, and I'm guessing it might be complicated for some of you. So one thing that you need to understand is that other folks can actually collect against your Social Security record under different circumstances. And we're going to go into we're going to get into the details of each of those in just a moment. But if they qualify, your children, your spouses, your ex-spouses, and survivors can all claim against your record. It's not just you. There's other folks who can qualify under certain circumstances. So let's jump into the first of those, okay? And these are children. So there's a couple of different scenarios here. The first one is if you're claiming Social Security because either you're maybe taking early retirement or you're disabled, if you have a child at that point who's unmarried and under age 18, they may qualify to receive a payment up to 50% of your payment amount. And so that's something to keep in mind. If they're between 18 and 19 years old and they're still a full-time student in high school, let's say, has to be no further than grade 12, so like not college. They could also qualify, or if they're 18 and older and they were disabled in some way prior to age 22, that would have qualified them. So these are things to keep in mind. Also, if the parent is deceased, so even if that parent hadn't started taking Social Security, if that parent had qualified for Social Security, would have, then the child may be in a similar situation where they can collect up to 75% of that payment amount under those same qualifications I just mentioned. Now, one thing that's important to keep in mind here that is that these benefits that I'm talking about for children and spouse, there's a family sort of maximum or family cap. So if there are multiple children involved, and let's say there's a spouse, then the maximum a family can typically receive is somewhere between 150 to 180% of your full retirement payment. Again, we're not going to get into a lot of details on this today because everyone's situation here is very different. But I think it's important that if you might fall into this situation or your family might fall into this situation, you want to make sure you're aware of it and that you know that it may be something for you to look into further. So the next category I want to talk about is spousal payments. So an interesting aspect to this this option for spouses is that if your spouse has started claiming Social Security, and if you want to claim Social Security, but let's say you didn't work as long and you didn't earn as many of those credits we talked about earlier, those 40 credits, and so you've got a very low Social Security payment benefit, you can qualify as their spouse to get up to 50% of their full retirement payment amount. Now, the key thing here is that you can only collect, your payment can only go up to that full payment amount of your spouse. They don't stack on each other, so you can't get your payment plus their full retirement payment amount. Now, you must be married at least 1 year and 62 years of older, unless you're caring for a child, as we mentioned earlier, with the child scenario that's under 16, or a child with a disability. And so the other thing to keep in mind with the spousal payment is that decision I talked about earlier, with when you claim your Social Security, can impact this. So if you claim your Social Security early, let's say at age 62, and you're the husband and you got the higher Social Security payment, but you decide to claim at age 62, your spouse, say, has a minimum Social Security payment because they didn't work as many years for whatever reason, they're not going to qualify for the full retirement amount because you claimed your retirement early. I should say they may not. There may be circumstances that's not true, but that's an important consideration that you'll need to look into when you're making that decision if you and your spouse are in that particular situation. So if you happen to have ex-spouses, or you happen to be an ex-spouse of someone, you can actually claim against your ex-spouse's record. Some key criteria here to be aware of is you had to be married at least 10 years. The ex-spouse can claim at any time. So they starting at age 62. You do not need to in any way notify your ex-spouse that you're submitting a claim. And it can be equal to up to half of your spouse's full retirement age payment, even if the former spouse decided they were going to collect Social Security early. So that's something to keep in mind as well. When you claim against their record, it does not affect payments of your former spouse in any way, nor does it affect payments to other spouses if they remarried, or even other ex-spouses if they were divorced multiple times. Just keep in mind that there's a couple of things to think about here. You have to have been divorced at least 2 years to be able to file this claim. Again, I mentioned you have to be at least 62. and you have remarried. So if you've remarried, then you may not qualify for this. The other thing to keep in mind is that, as a reminder, is that the payment that you would get is limited to no more than 50% of that ex-spouse's full retirement payment. If you earned Social Security credits yourself, let's say you also worked and earned 40 full credits that we talked about earlier, and let's say you already get paid as much as that 50% amount. So let's say, your ex-spouse, their full retirement payment is 2,000. You would qualify to get up to 1,000, but let's say you actually worked yourself and you can qualify to get, say, 1,500, then you won't qualify for this benefit because your personal Social Security record will actually cover that benefit and more. Okay. Okay, so next category is survivor payments. Now, the simplest example here is, you've got a husband and wife married. I'll just use an example. The husband, let's say, is the one that has the higher Social Security payment, and let's say they're the one that passes away. The surviving spouse can claim her deceased husband's benefit if it's higher than her benefit, and it's 100% of the or of the spouse's payment. The surviving spouse can also wait until the full retirement age to get the full payment if, for example, the spouse died, before they reached full retirement age. Also, couple of clarifications: you can claim as early as age 60 under the circumstance, but if you do, it'll reduce your payment. Age 50, if you're disabled, again, if you do at age 50 and you're disabled, it'll reduce the payment. And any age, if you're the survivor and you're caring for a qualified entitled child. Something that is also interesting that probably most of you would not be aware of is dependent parents can also qualify for a portion of the deceased spouse's payment if they can demonstrate that they relied on that child's Social Security for at least half of their support. So there isn't that as a potential option if you have that situation. Ex-spouses, as we mentioned earlier, they can also qualify in the case of their spouse passing away, their ex-spouse, if the former spouse was at least age 60, or if they were 50 to 59 if disabled, and if they were married again at least 10 years and did not remarry. Okay. Okay, so this is the final kind of category in this broader subject of who can claim against your record. And that is to talk about what happens if you remarry. So if you remarried before age 60 or age 50 if you're disabled, it'll make you ineligible to receive survivor benefits. If, however, you remarry after age 60 or age 50 if you're disabled, it doesn't impact your eligibility. Something to keep in mind is if you do remarry, let's say after age 60, you may have a spousal benefit with your new spouse, and you'll need to look at that versus the deceased spouse to see which one is higher, because Social Security will only pay you the higher of those two payments. You can't get both of them. You can only get one of the two, whichever one is is higher. Okay. Let's move on then to the next sort of category of the presentation, get into some of the more of the mechanics or logistics. So if you are ready to apply for Social Security, or when you are, there are kind of three key ways you can do that. One, as I mentioned earlier, is to create your My Social Security account. You can go to ssa.gov and apply without creating the My Social Security account. So you have that option as well. You can call the number listed here, the 800 number, and the hours are listed here as well. And if you also are hearing impaired, there's another 1-800 number you might want to take down if that's your situation. Also, you can go and make an appointment to meet in person with your local Social Security representative. If you want to find out where that is, you can go to ssa.gov/locator and it'll help you find your local office. Keep in mind, if you create the My Social Security account, you will have instant access to your earnings record, your estimate of payments, including disability payments, and at the same time help protect yourself against identity thieves. And the earnings record's an interesting one that you may want to consider, because there have been stories about folks having earnings with Social Security that are not accurate, which can cause some problems. So it's not a bad idea to take a look at your earnings record and make sure it looks reasonable and there's not something that you go, that I never earned that much money in my life. Because if you see something like that that appears to be incorrect, it's a good idea to notify the Social Security office that there may be a mistake on your record. Okay. All right. Next topic we have is the future of Social Security. So many of you may have read in the news, or you may have watched a news story, or maybe you've talked to friends, or you've been on Facebook or what have you, and you've heard people talking about Social Security is going to go bankrupt or things of that nature. The good news is Social Security is not going bankrupt. However, in a few years, the trust fund will only have about 80% of the money it needs to make the full payments. So what that means is that if there aren't some solutions put in place by Congress, it could result in significant payment cuts, which of course nobody wants if they're dependent on Social Security. AARP, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we are strongly advocating for these Social Security payments. And we've developed some very clear guiding principles for any solution that Congress puts together. So I want to go through those here one by one. One is we want to make sure the solution is financing Social Security for the long term. We don't want to play these games of having to revisit this issue every few years. We want to provide a stable foundation for the retirement income to make sure that workers and families and those affected by death and disability have a dependable income source. We want to protect those who are most in need. We want to continue to reward work. So we want to cover workers who contribute equitably and receive payments based upon those earnings. We want to ensure that payments are clearly defined and can't be outlived or they suffer from inflationary pressures. We want to make improvements to address the economic and demographic changes that have occurred over the years. So, for example, in 1950, there were roughly 16 workers contributing their FICA taxes for every person who received payments from Social Security. However, the projection is that in 2035, so in less than 10 years, there will only be a little bit more than 2.3 workers contributing that same FICA tax for every person receiving payments. It doesn't take very much math ability to listen to that and understand that that's going to be a difficult situation if Congress doesn't come up with some better funding mechanisms for the system. And then lastly, we want to protect the recipients who are either already or nearing retirement. We don't want Congress to come in and make drastic changes that affect folks who are already either taking those retirement payments or those Social Security payments and depending upon them, or people who are very close to that point who have already made plans. Remember, we're trying to advocate as much as we can for you. So we encourage you to look into all the materials that I'm going to share later in terms of, we have lots of materials online. This is the AARP is organizing around Social Security, and we encourage you to keep up to date on those. So a little bit more on that, some things that Social Security that they can do for Social Security to strengthen the future of the trust fund. One is they can eliminate or raise the wage cap. The wage cap is currently, I think I mentioned earlier, $184,500. So if they raise that amount, then that would mean more taxes would be coming into the trust fund. They can increase the payroll tax rate. So that was at 6.2% that the employer also pays. They could bump that tax rate up. They could also reduce payments for higher income earners. They could raise the full retirement age. So currently that full retirement age is 67. The last time it was increased was over 40 years ago. And actually that was in response to the last major crisis faced by Social Security Trust Fund. They could also utilize other funding options. I would encourage you to check out some free online resources. There's a couple of references here that are not AARP specific. They are actually independent resources that can give you a lot more detailed information about Social Security, its funding, and what we're facing in the next few years ahead. One of those is the Council for Economic Education, and the other is the American Academy of Actuaries. And we do have links for those. And if anyone is interested, just put a question in the chat and we'll find a way to get that information to you. Okay, so in a moment, we're going to pause the webinar to take your questions. However, I am by no means an expert on this. So I will do my best to answer your questions. But if I can't answer your questions, AARP has a wonderful website. It's called answers.aarp.org/socialsecurity. It is a free tool, and you do not have to be a member. You do not have to even be registered, at least for many of the features here. So for example, the question here, you put in, what is my full retirement age if I was born in 1961, produces a response, what is my Social Security full retirement age? So there's an article it links you to, and you can read that article. And again, you don't have to be a member. You don't have to even be registered to do that. Now, there is a benefit, however, if you register. It's a free account. If you register for a free AARP account, and again, you don't have to be a member. If you have a more complicated question, there is an option on this same website where you can submit that question to AARP Social Security Specialist, and they will get you an answer in 2 to 3 business days. So I really encourage you to use this feature. It's a wonderful resource for all your questions that you might have about Social Security, and it's a really excellent, easy to use place to go. Okay. All right. So Evan, I think with that, we're ready to start taking the questions.
Indeed we are. And the way to handle this is to ask them through the chat box. And Jack, I'm going to start with a series that are all related to each other, mostly dealing with taking Social Security while still working at the same time. Donald asks about age 62. Louie asks about 62. We got someone else asking at 64 and one about Lois asked about age 70. The basic question is, so let's start, and if you have to separate it by ages, do so. If you have to take Social Security while working, but just part or full time, how does that affect your Social Security check?
Yeah, no, great question. Thanks, Evan. So let's get the easy part of the answer out of the way first. If you wait until your full retirement age, so if your full retirement age is age 67, if you wait until age 67 to start claiming your Social Security payment, there is no income limit and you can work as much as you want to and still claim your full payment from Social Security. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. The folks who are impacted by the income limit are the ones who claim early retirement payments, and that would start with age 62. So if your full retirement age is age 67 and you start to claim your Social Security age 62, then while you are age 62, age 63, age 64, age 65, and age 66, you will be subject to an income limit in 2026 of around $24,000 and change. What that means to you is Social Security is going to deduct $1 for every $2 you earn above $24,000 from your Social Security payment. So let's say you earn $30,000 of income, you've claimed Social Security at age 62 and your payment is $1,500, then that's roughly, and I'm just using rough numbers here, but that's roughly $6,000 above that income limit. They're going to claw back $3,000 of that $6,000 from your Social Security payment. Now, keep in mind, I mentioned earlier, you may get some of that back once you reach full retirement age, but it's not, I don't think, guaranteed. But that's something to keep in mind if you do go above that income limit. Now, if you're working in the year that you reach full retirement age, so let's say this year you're turning age 67, that's your full retirement age, and you already claimed your Social Security payment in the year that you turn 67, up until you turn 67, they have a higher income limit, which is like 64,000 and change, I think. I'd have to go back to the slide, but I think that's roughly correct. And they only claw back $1 for every $3 above that income limit. Now, keep in mind that only applies in the months leading up to the month that you turn 67 in this example, if that's your full retirement age. So once you reach age 67, then they no longer claw back any of that money that you get your full Social Security payment.
All righty. Well, that I hope is very helpful to several of our participants today. If my application, this from Lee Wah, I believe, forgive me if I don't have that exactly right. If my application got delayed after age 62, say 1 or 2 or more months, will the total amount increase for the following payments?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, the person submitted their application at age 62, but for some reason the Social Security Administration delayed processing that application for a couple of months. Does that sound correct, Evan?
That is the way I interpret it, but this person would still be age 62.
Yeah, so I'm guessing here that your payment would still be the same payment because it doesn't increase until you turn age 63. So remember, it's every year it increases based upon when you claim Social Security. It's not every month.
Okay, I should add, we've received a couple of questions pertaining to Medicare or taxes, and I'm afraid that this will have to be handled by some other folks or some other resource at some other time. We must limit our focus here to Social Security. Well, here's one from Patricia. I worked full-time from age 19 to 60. Now I'm 62, and I've been working part-time since I turned 60. All right, so full-time up to 60, part-time since she's 62. I plan to claim at 67. How do my years working part-time for 7 years affect my Social Security claim at 67? Does part-time employment have any difference over full-time other than, I suppose, the amount paid?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So remember I talked about the credits you earn, right? So in this example you just shared with me, Evan, the fact that she worked from age 19 to age, I think 60 is what you said, that means
Correct.
that she almost certainly earned her 40 credits and then some. Actually, you can only earn 40 credits. So that's the first part. The second part of the equation is what were your highest income levels? And this is something I failed to mention earlier, so I'm glad the question was asked. So Social Security will look at the highest 35 years of income. So if, let's say, you had really high income midway through your career, but then it went down, towards the end of your career and it was lower at the beginning, then they'll take those middle years, and then they'll take, all the highest annual income statements for all of your years. So in the example where they worked full-time and part-time, the part-time income would count against that consideration. So if the part-time income knocked them into, a year that was one of their top earning years, that would be considered by Social Security in calculating their Social Security payment.
Okay, well, here's one. I will do my best to clarify as best as possible. If I collect at 62 and my husband, who is 3 years younger, also collects at 62, can I still change to collect his 50% if it is higher than my early retirement payment?
Yeah, great question. Um, yes, you should be able to claim. Well, let me clarify. I'm assuming the question is regarding the spousal benefit, not the survivor benefit in this case. If it is the spousal benefit, the way that works is if let's say if the lady who is collecting at age 62, let's say that her Social Security payment at that point is less than the Social Security payment that her husband will get when he claims at age 62, then she may qualify for some additional benefit to get her up to his payment. I would encourage her to look into that because her circumstances may be different, but there is a possibility that she would qualify.
Okay, we have one from Olivia. I will be 70 in mid-October. How soon before I turn 70 can I start the application for Social Security?
Well, congratulations on turning 70, Olivia. Uh, and I don't recall the exact period. I would suggest you go to that site that I had up for the answers, that you can go to for the AARP answers. I want to say, because I actually went through this to help my wife, I want to say it's at least a couple of months maybe before you turn 70, but that should be an easy thing to look for if you go to our AARP site. I'll just go back real quick so you can get that link. It should be very easy to find that on our AARP site here if you go in there and search for that. That should be a pretty straightforward question to get an answer to.
Okay, just got one or two more. Oh, I like this one. If I've been married and divorced 3 times, do all 3 exes qualify for spousal benefits?
So, I'm assuming that this person is wondering if those ex-spouses can claim against their retirement record, their Social Security record.
Well,
And
can all 3 apply against his if he was earning a lot more? Is the way I take that.
yes, they can. They can. They can do it without him knowing, or Carrie maybe, and they can do it without affecting his Social Security claim.
Okay, well, we're just about out of questions. I'm running through the list here. But Jack, is there anything that you would care to say to wrap things up before I bring down the curtain?
Yeah, real quick, Evan, I want to just show everyone a couple more slides here. First of all, just a couple more links. One is the one I already showed you, the answers.aarp.org. There's also on the AARP site, Social Security calculator, which you could use if you don't want to use the Social Security website itself. You can go to AARP. They have one of their own you can use to estimate what your payments might be. There's also a takeaway, aarp.org/SS takeaway. This is an excellent handout that you can use that has a lot of the information that we talked about today. And then finally, we talked about how can we ensure that those Social Security payments are not affected by shortcomings in the trust fund. And oops, sorry about that. And if you want to learn more about how we can protect Social Security from cuts, go to aarp.org/protect Social Security, and you can learn more about what AARP is doing to advocate for you. And then lastly, hopefully everyone will keep in touch. We do have multiple ways here at AARP Virginia for you to keep in touch. We have a website, which is aarp.org/VA. We have a 1-800 number you can call. You can email us. The email is right there. We are on Facebook, so we encourage you to follow us on Facebook. And then lastly, we're on X at AARPVA. And then that wraps it up. I do see a couple of people, Evan, raised their hands, but I don't know that we're handling questions directly. I don't know if they could maybe share something in chat, perhaps.
Well, just I overlooked a question that I think is worth asking. So if I hope Sharon is still around, but if not, just to clarify, if I collect while still working, then my actual benefit is reduced to the tune of whatever the applicable government clawback amount is based on the relevant income cap. I can read that one more time if you'd like. That was a question mark, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't quite. I understood the topic, meaning if I'm working while I claim Social Security and it's clawed back. I'm not sure I'm following the. Let me see if I can find it here real quick.
Well, it's way down near the bottom under SD. If I collect while still working, and this is a question, then my actual
this is from Sharon. Got it. Okay. Okay, just to clarify, if I collect while still working, then my actual benefit is reduced to the tune of whatever the applicable government clawback amount is. Is that based on the relevant income cap? And the answer is yes. So again, the amount, the income cap, if you're working and claiming Social Security early, the income cap, not including the year that you turn, you reach your full retirement age, is around $24,000. Okay, so you can earn $24,000 and they won't claw back any money. You can get your Social Security payment, earn $24,000, you're not affected. You're only affected if you earn above $24,000. And the only part that's affected is that earning above $24,000, right? And that's where you're impacted by a potential clawback that you might encounter with your Social Security payment.
All righty. Well, thank you, Jack. Hope you're hanging around to the end for that. I'm glad we could get to you. You will be receiving a feedback survey from AARP. It will ask you to evaluate this program. Please make sure to fill it out when it arrives, most likely in an email. Now, for anyone who may have joined us late, we are recording this program and you will get a link to this recording that you can review for your convenience. Aside from this presentation, there is plenty of Social Security and information that you can find on the aarp.org website. It's loaded with tools and information to help you out. Now, you can check out our other programs and other information at aarp.org. And also, we have some other programs that we offer virtually at aarp.org/virtual VA. Well, Jack, thanks so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. This concludes our program. We thank you for joining us and hope you have a good day.
Yep. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today.